What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Stay Hot. We are live in the Blue Wire studio, and it is great to be here. I'm with Matt and Theo in person, my two favorite co-hosts of all time. We're going to talk about the NFL draft, winners, losers. We have a lot to touch on. Before we get into that, Matt, Theo, how are you guys doing today? We are in Las Vegas.
We are. This is the first time I've been in this studio that Blue Wire has built, and we were here before when it was under construction, and I love recording actually physically with you guys instead of over Zoom. So it's always good to be able to read some body language and
Zero
stuff
latency.
like that.
Zero latency.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, dude, it's been a long day, and there's a lot that we've had to do, but I'm really excited to record in here.
Speaking of long days, Matt, would you care to tell people how much sleep we're running on right now?
Oh, yeah, I mean, because we had our flights leave at I had my flight leave at 7 a.m.
Mine left at 5:30 a.m.
And then we came here, and since we went back in time zones, we're like 3 hours behind on top of that. So
I am currently 30 hours without sleep. And Matt, I don't know.
That's a Kanye reference.
30 hours. Just a reminder, everyone, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We did have our live stream that went incredibly well, I thought. We gained, an incredible amount of subs, so thank you all for that. But, we're here, and we're in person, so we do appreciate you guys subscribing to the channel. Let's talk about some football, though. Let's talk about some football. That's what we're here for. I think right off the top, if we just want to go winners, who we think had the best draft.
First round of the NFL draft happened.
First round of the NFL draft happened. Matt, who do you think had the best draft?
I am a little biased. So I am going to have to say the Jets because they picked Gardner and Garrett Wilson. But I also think that's a valid answer. And Johnson, right?
Yeah, Jermaine Johnson.
Johnson.
Traded back up.
And I think that's a valid answer, regardless of my biases being pro Gardner and pro Garrett Wilson, because I think they can very reasonably be your cornerback one and your wide receiver one.
And your edge rusher.
And your
best
edge rusher.
Yeah. That's what you're getting.
I think with them, it's you look at how Zach Wilson plays, and he likes to, we say with Ohio State, what was their big problem when they would lose games? They wouldn't give Garrett Wilson enough chances to go out there and make a play. And I think Zach Wilson's going to go and at least put the ball where Garrett Wilson can go get it, which is a very...
This is like two problems being solved at the same time. When Ohio State lost to Michigan, we were watching this game and we're over here please give Garrett Wilson the football. And then we're watching, Zach Wilson in college, and all Zach Wilson's success comes from just incredible trust in his receivers to go make plays for him. And that's one thing that he did not have last year. Elijah Moore was hurt, and Corey Davis is fine, but he's not that elite number one in the same way that Garrett Wilson is.
And the other thing about the Jets draft is not only did they get all three of those guys, but they very easily could have said, we need to take Jermaine Johnson at 10. And they made a good call not doing that, and he fell, and they were able to trade back up and get him. And if they had taken him at 10, which I'm willing to bet they considered, they would have missed out on Wilson.
Yes.
Yeah. Jermaine Johnson was a guy who I mocked at 4 because it sounded like they liked him more than Thibodeau. The beat reporters were saying they love him. They worked with him at the Senior Bowl, and at the Senior Bowl, he was the best player out there, is what it sounded like. And watching the tape, I tend to agree that he did blow it up. So, yeah, I assume they did really love him, and when they traded up, it was clearly obvious that that's the guy they were going for. His slide was a little surprising because the media was real high on him. When I watched Jermaine Johnson, I didn't love it. I had a second-round grade on him, so the fact that he fell, it was surprising just because of what the media was saying. But based on the film, I actually thought that Jermaine Johnson was more of a later first, early second-round guy because he just doesn't win quickly. He's someone that needs a little bit more time to work his way through somebody than someone who's going to win around the edge real quick like Thibodeau can do, and even Aiden Hutchinson. Right. That's kind of what was my take on him, where it's man, the Jets could really make a mistake taking this guy later. But at the spot they got him, he is super powerful. He is good against the run. And I agree, Matt. I'm not the world's highest on Gardner, but I still had him at CB2. And through this pre-draft process, I've grown with him. I've grown with him. I've grown on him.
I swear to God, you had him at cornerback 5 at the start.
No, I had him at 3. I liked Elam more, who was the only corner.
Elam.
No, he was Did him or McDuffie go first?
McDuffie went first.
Okay, all right. Well, he was still a first-round pick, so I'm calling a W there. I liked Elam, so I was not
Elam went to the
surprised.
Bills, right? A little bit
Kyra Elam went to the Bills at 23. McDuffie went 21 to the Chiefs.
So, yeah, I think the expectations for the Jets is an interesting question as well because, yes, this is a loaded AFC and you wouldn't think of them as contenders, but, man, you've got the franchise quarterback. You've invested in the offensive line. You've got the wide receiver one and some good depth pieces there with Elijah Moore and Corey Davis. You've got the defense now. You've got a good secondary, man.
Oh, yeah.
3 corners that you hope can lock it down. 2 edge rushers, new edge rushers coming in with Carl Lawson and now Jermaine Johnson. So no real excuses, right? I mean, this is the year where maybe you don't have to win the division or anything, but I know it's a tough AFC, but you can't just be like, oh, we're other guys are just better.
Well,
like it's time.
Right. Everyone else
games.
is good. We can't do anything. I think what they need to do is 2 things. Zach Wilson has to look like he has seriously gotten better or good, and they need to be fighting for a winning record. If they're 8-9, it's no big deal. Those 2 things, you're good. Anything less, it's a disappointment.
Yeah, no, you can't go. I don't know how many games they won. 4. You can't win 5-6 and have it be like, oh, yay.
Yeah.
The main thing is like Zach Wilson actually has to look like he's worth the number 2 pick. If that happens, I don't see why they can't win a lot of games. This is the second offseason. I liked what they did last offseason a lot, except I wasn't high on Zach Wilson. But the rest of the draft, I thought they did a really good job. I thought they've done a good job this year. So, yeah, it's been 2 decent off seasons in a row for them, and it's time to start winning. Blaiden, I know I'm directed. You're usually the point guard. So.
No, I mean, do you want me to give mine?
Yeah.
My winner?
Or I could get mine.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. I know you're probably going to take the other team that I like. I'm going with Philly. I think Philly did a phenomenal job, and I think this is the second year in a row now where they have just been outstanding in the offseason process. I mean, we talk about, Jalen Hurts, who they got, and, for a second-round quarterback, you usually don't expect this kind of, progression out of him, that we've seen. But then you looking at this draft, right? They get Jordan Davis at 13, who is your top prospect.
Yep.
And I think I had him at like my 5th ranked prospect. So to give him at 13, already incredible value. I gave that an A+.
Yeah.
Right? Or no, I gave that an A because they had to trade up. They had to trade back up for that. But then they got AJ Brown. And that's the part where I'm like, oh my gosh, we're looking at a team that has AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, and Jordan Davis in the span of 2 years. That's the additions that they've made.
And Landon Dickerson, the center out of Alabama, played pretty well for them last season. Howie Roseman gets a lot of shit.
He does. He really does.
Fire Howie. And the Rager pick was bad, and Eagles fans didn't like the Hurts pick, and Arsaja Whiteside, I believe is how you pronounce his name. There have been whiffs with the Eagles for sure, but man, getting a first-rounder for Wentz, the last 2 drafts in a row, they won a Super Bowl with him as the GM. Kind of sounds like one of the better GMs in the league to me.
And just to add that, they got an extra first-round pick next year.
And they got an extra
first-round pick next year. The Eagles they were way ahead of schedule last year, making the playoffs. I'm not going to sit here and say that they're going to be a contender next year.
They would be a popular Super Bowl pick if you had a little bit more faith in the QB.
Yes.
I think they would be a Super Bowl.
But Hurts is a guy that I mean I've always said Hurts always gets better. He always does. This is the year though that like he has to make that jump.
Yeah. Right.
It can't just be like a little bit here, a little bit there. No, this is the time now that we're there's some expectations here. You have the receivers that you need. Your offensive line's great. You had the number 1 rushing attack in the league a year ago, right? I mean, you have weapons around you. You have tons of help. Your defense is going to be good. There is no excuse not to A, be a playoff team, and B, to win a playoff game at least.
Yeah, I would agree. I thought AJ Brown is fantastic to me as a route runner. They took Treylon Burks, the Titans did, to replace him, who's a similar type of dude, but a lot cheaper.
Yes.
But the difference between Burks and Brown is also a high-level route runner. And when you've got that whole package of physicality and what he can do after the catch and his hands, he can just go up straight up and moss you and very, very complete tier 2, bordering on tier 1 wide receiver for him. So, yeah, definitely a great draft from the Eagles. And I think we'll talk a little bit more about the A.J. Brown deal and what it means later.
Because we have a lot to talk about with the wide receivers as well.
Yeah, Hollywood Brown. We'll get into that.
Theo, I assume I won't assume.
Yeah.
Who's the team that you thought had?
I'm going with the other New York team, the New York Giants. Last year, they traded down with the Bears, and they ended up getting another top 10 pick to go with their top 10 pick they earned for being horrible. And Kayvon Thibodeau to the Giants was a fit that I've liked since the beginning. I didn't end up mocking them just because I was trying to read into the tea leaves and the media and trying to get a read on what these guys wanted to do. Seemed like maybe the Giants weren't super interested in Thibodeau, which was disappointing to me because I thought he was a perfect scheme fit for them. And they've just hired Wink Martindale from the Ravens. And what Wink Martindale likes to do is heavy blitz stuff, right? So bring 7, drop 2 guys. You never know who's coming from where. And what that can do is it can manufacture some free releases, right? Some unblocked guys. And Thibodeau's the last guy you want as your unblocked guy because his first step is so explosive. You know, if it's a little bit of a slower guy, maybe you have a little bit of time to make the throw. You're not going to have that with Thibodeau. They're going to be able to manufacture some great looks for him, and he's going to be able to take advantage while he learns to use his hands, which he doesn't really do all that much right now. The other thing about his scheme is they drop back a lot. Simulated pressures, I mean, everyone knows it on Madden, right? You get into the double A gap looks, you send 2 guys drop back,
Right.
Simulated pressures. Sometimes the guy dropping back is going to be a defensive end. And they've got Kayvon Thibodeau, who actually looks quite fluid and athletic in space out there. So he can drop and he can rush, and this is a good spot to get him some good looks while he's kind of refining himself. I loved that pick. Even though there was, I think, no chance the Panthers took him at number 6, right, because they just don't need him. They still took him at number 5 just because I think they thought that's a scheme fit we need. We're not taking the chance of anything. We're just taking him immediately. So love that. And then Evan Neal, just a massive man, can play right tackle. You got Andrew Thomas at left tackle. 2 good tackles. That's good.
The Giants, I think, are the only team that I gave 2 A+ grades to, and it's because they got 2 players at high-level positions that fill positions of need that were like being mocked for months to be the first pick.
Yeah.
Right. I think both these guys had a lot of noise during the pre-draft process, and if you ignore a lot of that, you could see these guys as your 1 and 2 top prospects.
They were my 3rd and 4th respectively, and my 1 and 2. Jordan Davis and Kyle Hamilton are probably not guys I would take 1 and 2 because I was kind of ignoring positional value. So when it comes to guys I would take high, yeah, they were my 1 and 2. Even though I love what Davis does, and I love what Hamilton does, they don't quite have the. I'm not a big positional value guy, but taking them number 1 and 2 overall in the draft is a little much even for me. So these 2, if I was running all the teams, they might be my number 1 and number 2 pick. So it'll be interesting, the Giants' expectations next year, though, because, I don't know, Matt, if you have anything to say about that, or Blaiden, but I look at the corner and the quarterback room and the interior of the offensive line. There's still a decent amount of holes. It's not like the Jets, where I think that they need to be in wild card contention.
It's a little. The Giants are, there's only been 1 quarterback taken so far, and there's a few guys that you could. You mocked them, Willis at 5.
Yeah.
At one point. They could still get Willis. So I think their expectations are still a little up in the air. But I'd say that they're probably still not that high. They need to show promise. Every team needs to show promise. But when you're going into a quarterback that hasn't really, shown that he is going to be a franchise guy going into year 4, it's hard to, especially with a first-year head coach, it's hard to expect, playoffs?
Yeah. Yeah, this isn't like a Jets where you expect Zach Wilson to make the leap into one of the better quarterbacks in the league, which is what you should expect from a number 2 overall pick. The Giants don't really have that. They don't have the secondary. So I want to talk about Malik Willis a little bit, though, because, people thought maybe he would go number 2 to the Detroit Lions. He's not in the first round whatsoever. Really, that's a fall that is pretty unprecedented. A guy who could go 2 just not make the first round.
I think it was a decent amount of Twitter noise. There's just sometimes you can see guys once Twitter got a hold of Malik Willis is the guy, he is that dude, and he's going to be the next Josh Allen, and that's the type of quarterback you need to draft. All of a sudden, everyone was going to keep mocking him higher and higher and higher, and it just didn't necessarily mean that NFL teams were thinking like that. And I think, they all did their due diligence on that stuff. But this is one of those takes where maybe you go back to where we were 2 2 months ago, 6 weeks ago, none of these quarterbacks should be taken in the first round. And maybe fans convinced themselves otherwise, and maybe teams weren't actually ever changing their mind on that.
Right.
And I mocked a bunch of the guys who kind of fell. Jermaine Johnson, I had a second-round grade on. Malik Willis, I had a third-round grade on. Devin Lloyd fell later than anybody really thought. I had a early second-round grade on him. And I guess my lesson is sometimes I just got to trust the tape. And I think, like, obviously they didn't fall into second round. It was a lot of those guys were late first-round guys. But the fact that still, Devin Lloyd, there is a little bit of a question, I think, about his tackling. And there is maybe a little bit of a question about just how athletic he really is, where he's not, like, you listen to some of his college coaches talk, or the coaches who went against him, you would have thought they were the number 1 overall pick. You would have thought he was the consensus linebacker 1 on everything. I had Quay Walker above him. I actually had Quay Walker as my linebacker 2 above both him and Dean. So when you talk about, like, the Packers drafting him, sometimes, the tape doesn't lie. And sometimes the media does. And Malik Willis, you watch his game against Louisiana Lafayette this year, it was horrific. He looked undraftable. So NFL teams see that. They think, if this guy's bad, I'm going to get fired. That's what you think. So, yeah.
Especially, that's the thing that I never understood about, like, the Malik Willis number 2 hype was the Lions were never in a position to need that, right? No one's on the hot seat there. It's not like the Panthers getting mocked Kenny Pickett, I understood, right? Because you're like, okay, Matt Rule's, he's done, right? If they don't get a quarterback, he's toast. But, like, the Lions, they're fine. They're rebuilding. I mean, they've been patient to this point. I feel like the fans have been patient. I feel like ownership has been patient. You have no need to make a big splash at quarterback like that.
They really are in a great position with, like, the mindset of how long this is going to take. I really think they would be a team that'd be beneficial to, like, at least take a shot on a guy in the second round, because a lot of times bad teams have a problem sitting quarterbacks because they're going to be bad. But the Lions, I think, if they went through a year with Goff, I think they'd be still significantly better than they were last year. But they could also sit that quarterback and have sort of that guy waiting in the wings. And that year of, being able to sit has helped a lot of really good quarterbacks now.
Yeah. While we're talking quarterbacks, let's briefly mention Kenny Pickett going as the only first-round quarterback. I can't remember exactly where I had him. I had, like, Ritter, and then I was like, Pickett is, like, I think QB, like, 4 for me. He's got some issues, and I don't think he quite has the physical talents to overcome them. When I saw him try to drive throws, a lot of the times the wide receivers, like, they got there, but the wide receivers would kind of have to pick it off the ground is one thing that I noticed. When he really had to throw a frozen rope, it would kind of go down, and wide receivers, right, it would get there, but again, low. You kind of see the same thing with Mac Jones sometimes, where it's like,
yes,
you would see him really try to drive it, and the wide receivers would have to pick it off just barely off the dirt. I saw the same thing with Pickett. He's someone whose pocket presence is very jittery, someone who has played behind bad offensive lines before and kind of plays like he still plays behind one, where he's
and
like,
you know what? And the thing is, with the Steelers, he still does.
Still does, yeah.
And this is such, you can play behind the bad offensive line, and I get to a point, obviously, all of this, but you can still look like you have good poise. Odds are, if you're a first-round draft pick, like you're a top quarterback, you're going to go to a team with a bad offensive line. So him not showing the poise, like, because Sam Darnold used to get ridiculous, his offensive line is terrible excuses forever. And it's just like, well, that's true, but also, it can be both.
Yeah, we've seen Justin Herbert put up phenomenal seasons with, like, his rookie season, his offensive line was garbage. And Burrow, not saying, like, Pickett's about to have this bad season behind a bad offensive line, but I do worry a little bit about his pocket presence. I do worry a little bit about, he takes a lot of sacks. I do worry a little bit about his arm strength. I worry a little bit about his hand size. But I said this before, reminds me a little bit of, like, a discount Joe Burrow. He's got kind of a gamer quality to him, where he, like, the fake slide, for example, where it's just like he thought to do that in that moment, So, again, I've been low on Joe Burrow, and Pickett is not as good as Joe Burrow was coming out, obviously. But, I mean, the old prospect with the last year breakout, the small hands, maybe the arm is a little weak.
There's a lot of things.
Took a lot of sacks. It's like, man, that sounds like Burrow. That sounds like a little discount Burrow. And obviously Burrow just had a season where he led the Bengals to the Super Bowl. So, and he played a pro level kind of style Pickett did.
I do think with Burrow, you were talking earlier a little bit of how you feel Pickett's anticipation or ability to do that, like throw with anticipation, is shaky. I think that's like Joe Burrow's biggest strength.
Yeah.
So I do feel, I definitely see I watched a little
Pickett's
bit of
better
Pickett,
at it than Malik Willis, who Howell doesn't really do it. Willis doesn't really do it. Corral can do it, but he doesn't really do it past his first.
Corral does not.
He made kind of real throws against in a real offense. Pickett did so. And Ritter's the only other one who I really feel that way about. So it'll be interesting to see if those are the first two guys off the board when it's all said and done. Is like the two guys who actually ran legit offenses.
Well, we've been talking about a lot of the draft picks, but I think it's about time we talk about our good friends over at PrizePicks.
Ah, yes.
Where they make daily fantasy easy, and I love this. I know you guys will too. PrizePicks offers more NBA props than any other DFS operator. And, it's so many players and it's so many stat categories you can't even fathom. You pick 2 to 5 players and they're over or under projections. It's just you versus the projected numbers. You can win 10 times on any entry on any given night. And PrizePicks allows mixed sport entries. So for example, you could take the over on Jason Tatum and you can combine it with the under on Francisco Lindor. Users that deposit and use our promo code will receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. Just be sure to use the promo code STAYHOT. So don't hesitate. Check out prizepicks.com. Use our promo code STAYHOT or go to your app store and download the PrizePicks app today. Again, that's the promo code STAYHOT. PrizePicks is where they make daily fantasy easy. Do you guys want to talk about wide receivers now? Because
there's a lot to say.
There's a lot to say about wide receiver. I mean, we had the run of London. London went first, which is interesting.
It went London at 8, and then it went.
Yeah, so the deal was
Garrett Wilson.
The deal was if Jamison Williams didn't go first, we killed Theo. Then he said double or nothing. All right, if he doesn't go second,
double or nothing. And he went.
I'm never trusting the media again. Okay. You know what? I know more than the beat reporters. I do. I had Garrett Wilson as not wide receiver 1. I had him as wide receiver 4, bordering on Olave. I actually moved him above Olave at the very end to wide receiver 4, but he was wide receiver 5 for me for a long time. Then I hear all the hype he's wide receiver 1 on so many teams' boards. Okay, I got to move him up. Malik Willis, oh my God, the Lions they've got to take him at number 2. They're thinking about it. He's a top 10 lock. I move him up. Jermaine Johnson, oh my God, the Jets like him. They could pick him as high as 4. I move him up. And yet, none of those things were, my scouting was right on them. And none of those things happened. And there's a couple more examples as well. Quay Walker, we talked about linebackers on one episode. Everyone's got Dean and Lloyd as the top 2. I actually had Chanel, who didn't go in the first round. But I did have Quay Walker above these 2. All right? And I mocked him as the first linebacker taken. So it's I got to just trust my
Theo
instincts.
is taking his victory lap.
I'm not even taking it because I didn't even take, I was trying to listen to just listen.
No, I mean, you've said, it's not like you said.
It's not like these are undocumented things.
Yeah,
things
you've said these on the podcast. You've said we have text messages of you saying this kind of stuff.
I just got it. I'm never listening to a beat reporter again.
I would think that Wilson was probably number 1 on a lot of teams' boards.
Yeah.
And that, sometimes the team that has another guy number 1 is maybe just the one who pulls the trigger on a receiver first.
Olave at 3 was the most surprising to me. Him going that high was.
Yeah,
He's a nice player. He's really solid, but to trade up like the Saints did and to trade back into the first round and then to trade up from there, you're kind of looking for a total game changer. To me, that's someone like Wilson. Olave is just a nice.
Well, here's the thing,
which is not bad, but it's man.
Well, so Wilson was gone at 10, right?
Yeah.
So the run of receivers, we didn't really. It was Drake London, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Jamison Williams. That's 3 back-to-back Ohio State receivers, by the way. And then after that, it was Jahan Dotson at 16. And then it was Treylon Burks at 18.
That was it.
And yes, that was it.
But the big wide receiver moves are the trades.
Yes.
Right.
I mean, the Cardinals trade.
What are they doing, man?
You tell me, man. What are they doing?
It's the problem with this trade is is
The AJ Brown trade that happened right after.
the AJ Brown trade is like pretty clearly better, but also with Marquise Brown, like you're going to have to pay him next year on top of the fact that you gave up, going from a first to a third, right? Yeah. And that is insane for somebody who was debatably meeting expectations.
Yeah.
And I like Marquise Brown, as a guy
He's gotten
who takes
a lot
the top
better.
of the
He's
defense,
not the
and
worst.
He has gotten better.
Blaiden, I know you've made the argument, famously made the argument that he's the worst wide receiver in football
I just gave Theo this look like...
He's not that anymore. But like for a Christian Kirk replacement, I don't know, man. It's for the Ravens to take him at 25 where they did, and then he kind of underwhelmed, and then they got a higher draft pick for him when a guy like Treylon Burks was on.
Imagine, okay, if you're the Cardinals, you have two options, right? You can do that trade, or you could try to trade up to say like 12, for example, and you'd have to spend some extra assets on top of your first, but you wouldn't have to pay that receiver for the next 5 years, serious money. And it could be Jamison Williams, who has higher potential.
You could pay Christian Kirk and get your first round draft pick.
Yeah, I mean, there's just better ways.
Instead,
to
now they're getting.
that.
Unless they're going to move on from him after this year, you got no first. You're going to have to pay the guy. It's just a boneheaded mistake.
It is the worst of all
Trading
outcomes.
a first for expiring contract players is rarely ever good.
Yeah.
Especially if they're not a bona fide star.
And to me, the only thing that makes sense is Kyler, the Oklahoma connection, where they're like, oh my God, Kyler's pissed. Might want to leave. Let's get him his Oklahoma buddy, his Oklahoma wide receiver one. Let's see if we can spark that connection. Maybe they look at the Bengals and Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow, and they were like, oh God, we need to pair. Like, how electric is it when you pair two guys like from their college days, and maybe that's what they were thinking, and they were just like, let's appease Kyler, let's try to put that contract back together.
The thing is like, it's not on the field. It's not going to be like bad on the field. It's not like they got worse or anything, but it's just bad asset management.
Yeah,
and doing stuff like that.
And Keim last year puts Keim under the microscope because it's like Zaven Collins last year didn't do much his rookie year. Some of the free agent acquisitions they made, they got beat in the play. Like, man, it doesn't really seem like that Cardinals front office is.
What are their expectations?
Man, you got to think
they
playoffs.
have to win. They have to win a playoff
you'd have to
game,
say
right?
They're better than they were last year, right? And last year they got to the playoffs. They got beat horribly by the eventual Super Bowl champions, but you got to get better every year. You got a quarterback on a rookie This is the time, man.
You got a star quarterback on a rookie contract,
deal, and you're wasting it. So they did the worst by a considerable margin in my eyes. One of the worst moves of the whole offseason, in my opinion. So, but it's very interesting, like all these wide receivers moving: AJ Brown, Hollywood, Hill, Adams.
Well, I think it's interesting. We talk about like, oh, maybe the Cardinals are trying to please Kyler Murray, and then we saw what Lamar was tweeting.
Yeah,
right,
dude.
yeah. Lamar's pissed off now.
And even when the Ravens, outside of like Marquise Brown, I get it. Like now they don't have that guy to take the top off the defense, and that is very important. But they had a good draft. They had a great draft.
Yeah.
I don't know who they were.
Some people waving at us through the glass.
And even Lamar tweeted out when Linderbaum got picked. He's like lame or whatever.
He said WTF. And then later he was like, I'm not talking about the center, y'all, but it's like weird to say what the fuck right after the pick.
Yeah, I mean, but okay.
Maybe he's just like still in shock and it's bad timing. But like, man,
Lamar, like, okay, let's say Lamar is mad. What are you mad about? Right? You got like, okay.
It's a friend, It's a personal
you don't want to
connection.
lose Marquise Brown. I get that as like a friend thing. But like, okay, the Ravens came out of this draft with Kyle Hamilton, who arguably the best player in the draft.
Yeah.
That is an A+ pick in my mind, hands down, because they didn't trade. They stayed.
They stayed at 14
and got Kyle Hamilton, bro. And then they got back in and took Linderbaum.
got back in.
Linderbaum, who I thought was the best interior offensive lineman in this draft. Super athletic. It's just like I don't know. I feel like this is a run first team. They're getting J.K. Dobbins back.
You could argue they got 2 blue chips. Yeah. So
it's just like
I don't know. Lamar, I'm sure they'll talk it over with him and maybe
they'll find some other guy. And
if they
there's still a lot of receiver options,
if,
obviously.
If our company traded one of you guys,
I was going to say the same.
it's like
If Blaiden gets traded off the pod, I'm going to be upset no matter what we get.
What the hell? So it is what it is.
What would you have to get back from me
at
to
least a couple of firsts.
At least a couple of firsts.
Maybe a couple of firsts and a former player. But yeah, so I get it from Lamar. I thought like it was a little immature, but I don't think it's like that crazy. So yeah, that's my thoughts on it. And I just think it's interesting. It just goes to show how people value wide receivers and teams value wide receivers in this league right now. You've seen all these trades. It's the DeAndre Hopkins deal screwed everything up, where all of a sudden it's do or die. You got to pay wide receivers at least $25 million. And it seems like no one really knows what to think about that. Half the teams are like, no way, they're not worth that much.
Half the teams are like, yes, please.
Other teams are like, oh,
we'll give them a first to do it.
And it makes sense because like if you look at like maybe a Pro Football Focus and look at their positional value charts, they've got wide receivers right there at the very top. So any team that kind of subscribes to that mentality is probably like, oh yeah. And then maybe some who are more old school are like, oh yeah.
I don't know.
Receiver.
Yeah, the receiver.
What about Jordan Davis, damn it? But although here we go, the Eagles doing both. But
The one other thing that I think is interesting is that Deebo didn't get traded.
yeah.
Yeah.
So like
I think we
I
can
guess
say
That was the big name that was expected.
that was the guy. That was probably the number one guy you would have thought.
we were talking to a connection to the Eagles, and he said that, or she was talking to Roseman, and Howie Roseman said that Deebo was too expensive. I think I could say that.
Well,
And then it's like, okay, if Deebo was too expensive for them and AJ Brown wasn't, the 49ers are asking a hell of a
they're
lot.
asking for 2 firsts.
Yeah.
Essentially, they're probably asking for 2 firsts
And Deebo's probably asking for even more
AJ's money. And it's just like
AJ.
something has to. If that's the case, something has to give. He's either going to not play or he's going to go back to the 49ers. And I'm sure the 49ers would be welcome to have him back. But if you're going to be like, I'm not playing for this team publicly, it's like it's a little.
Yeah.
The bridge is a little burned.
A little
yeah,
bit.
absolutely. So
At least lit the match.
That's something else to watch.
yeah, so I think that was definitely super interesting. Deebo probably, like we said a couple podcasts ago, my gut feeling is you didn't get traded, and tonight he didn't get traded, and so he's probably not getting traded.
Yeah. But we talk about value, and Theo, I would like you to talk about a new valuable
man.
asset that we have here at Stay Hot.
Yes, Manscaped. Support for Stay Hot is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Their products are precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped Performance Package, the ultimate men's hygiene bundle. Join over 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you. 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code STAYHOT, all caps, one word, no numbers, at manscaped.com. If my math is correct, that is about 8 million balls. The Performance Package 4.0 has arrived, and oh man, is it a game changer. Inside this package, you'll find their Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, Weed Whacker ear and nose hair trimmer, Crop Preserver ball deodorant, Crop Reviver toner, Performance boxer briefs, and a travel bag to hold your goodies. First off, the Lawnmower 4.0, this trimmer is the future of grooming and, dare I say, the greatest ball trimmer ever.
Ever?
And you wouldn't say that lightly.
I don't say that lightly. Their 4th generation trimmer features a cutting-edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents. Oh my God, it's Slade. Thanks to their advanced skin-safe technology, the Lawnmower 4.0 is waterproof and also has a 400K LED spotlight if you need a more precise shave. I'm going more low-key for the rest of this. I don't have the energy. Because this trimmer is waterproof, you can say goodbye to the mess on the bathroom floor. You thought that was good, but want to take your grooming game to even further to the next level? The Performance Package 4.0 also includes the Weed Whacker nose and ear hair trimmer. The Weed Whacker is also waterproof and provides proprietary skin-safe technology, which helps reduce nicks, snags, and tugs in those delicate nose holes. Their Crop Preserver ball deodorant and Crop Reviver ball toner will change the way you approach your hygiene routine. Trust me when I say this, fellas. Your balls will be thanking you. Manscaped even threw in 2 free gifts to the Performance Package 4.0, the Manscaped Boxers and Shed Travel Bag. Bring your comfort and boxers to another level. It's time to take care of yourself, so go to manscaped.com and get 20% off, plus free shipping with the code Stay Hot.
I know everyone's thinking, like, that's a lot of things. Like, it's got to cost a fortune. And, first of all, it doesn't. Second of all, it's worth it. Third of all, we're giving you 20% off because we love you and we're nice like that.
All right. Well, we can't talk about every single team in this draft. The podcast would go on as long as the draft did, which is too long.
It's too long.
You know what? Can I say something about the draft? They will milk the hell out of like every second. The pick will be in for longer than like the teams have on the clock to make the pick.
Right.
Why is that a thing?
The speech that Tony Gonzalez gave with Austin Eckler was the worst moment of my life.
And they're doing it on purpose.
And
they get up there, we're about to give you the pick. Just kidding.
No, we're going to go talk for a minute. I don't even know what they were talking about. Something about the Chargers? I don't care.
And it wasn't the
And then all that to draft Trevor Penning? At least draft someone good. I'm kidding, Trevor. No, I'm not.
No,
but he's got the traits. All right, he does, but not someone I would pick there. But
Not someone I would have picked either.
it is what it is.
You're a Packers fan. You're a Panthers fan.
No.
I'm a Browns fan. The Browns didn't pick today. How did you guys feel about your teams before we get out?
Matt, you want to start with the Panthers?
Well,
they picked first.
I didn't think we were a contender before tonight, and I don't think we're a
Now-
contender now.
And now we're winning the Super Bowl. That's exactly what Matt is saying.
I don't know. I think at the top of this draft, people were very high on the tackles. There's 3 franchise tackles. And while Icky wasn't necessarily my number one, I said I was okay with any of the 3 of those. They stayed, where they wanted to be. They had their pick of all 3, and they got their guy. So I'm going to assume that's a good thing. It's not like they were just like, well, this is the last guy. We might as well.
Right.
So I think this is the type of move that maybe doesn't really like change your life going into next season or like your expectations. But next offseason, you're going to be looking back and you're going to be like, if he turns out, I'm glad I did that. I'm glad that I went and got myself, a piece that could be on the team for a decade. And I really do think all 3 of those guys are good. And his Okonwu's ceiling it's high.
It's high.
It's real good. And he's going to have a lot of fun highlights.
Yeah, he's a great and Rule. I mean, when he fired Joe Brady, he was like, "Well, we didn't run the football enough." So they're going to be pounding the rock this year. You best believe that.
Yes.
And Icky's the best guy to do that with.
One underrated, storyline of this season is off season. The Panthers fixed their offensive line. It was one of the worst last year, and now it's very respectable. They have 2 good tackles. I think their interior offensive line is going to be entirely different.
Corbett's really
Bozeman.
underrated.
Yeah,
Bozeman
it's definitely a respectable line, and it's a multi-year rebuild. But if you can get a
all of a sudden
7-win season out, if you could trade for a Garoppolo or a Baker and get a 7-win season out of this, show some, J.C. Horn comes back, looks okay. Kwanu looks okay. You can maybe see it working. They were in a really tough spot this offseason, and they still are, but it wasn't a bad offseason from them.
No, it really wasn't. I think a lot of people will look at it as a bad offseason because they won't end up like there really wasn't a quarterback move for them to make. They're kind of just screwed at that position, honestly. But I think overall, you look at the moves that they which moves they made, I thought it was a lot more good than bad, whereas last year, even if you just look at, outside of them messing up the quarterback situation, it was a lot more bad than good.
Yeah. The Packers.
Packers.
That's my team. The team that never drafts a wide receiver in the first round. Guess what they did? Guess what they didn't do?
Did they draft a receiver in the first round?
They did not. And honestly, here's the thing. Where did Burks go? Burks was not on the board. Jahan Dotson was not on the board.
No one was on the board.
Pickens
Olave wasn't
on the board.
Olave wasn't on the board. Garrett Wilson wasn't on the board. Jameson Williams wasn't on the board. Drake London wasn't on the board. Everyone else I've got. Pickens is a second-round guy to me. He is. There's some character concerns, too. I like him a decent amount. I think he's got a high potential, but with everything with him, I didn't think he was like an elite separator. There are some maturity issues, which I don't care that much about, but they're there. I would have been fine with him at 22 or 28, but I do have a second round grade on him. Sky Moore, I have a second round grade on. Alec Pierce, I have a second round grade on. So at that point, it's like they have 2 picks in the second round. If you get one of those guys there, that's like I'm totally okay with going into taking 2 defensive players. Quay Walker to me is actually a very good linebacker, a guy I had a first round grade on, a guy I'm not mad that they took. And people are going to be like, coping, you're coping. I'm not coping. I mean, the next pick, you want to hear me cope? Let's wait a little bit. Quay Walker has a perfect linebacker build. Like, he is a big dude, long arms. That's the problem with Dean, is like he's a little short, and it's like it's not your ideal linebacker body type. Quay Walker is. On top of that, really fluid in space and a good cover guy from what I saw. And the one concern is maybe he wasn't that vocal leader like Dean was on that offense. Like, the middle linebacker, you want a guy who's the fire of
Quarterback of the defense.
The quarterback of the defense. And Quay Walker, 1-year starter, and when he was kind of that, the second guy to Dean's one. But that's what you're kind of getting with him in Green Bay to start out with. You got Devondre Campbell and you got Quay Walker right next to him. Yeah. Man, gonna be tough to run on those guys. And Devontae Wyatt, who didn't love, he was the guy. Quay Walker, I was totally fine with that pick. I legitimately was totally fine with that pick. Wyatt is a guy who he's had some incidents off the field where he's kicked outdoors and sound like he's broken into some places and caused some trouble in there. Doesn't sound like it was like a Tyreek, like it doesn't sound like he like hit or really like abused anybody in those situations. But man, there are some character flags there. He's 24 years old, which is older than you like to see. By the time he's done with his rookie contract, he's going to be damn near out of his prime, right? 29. Right. So those are I would have liked someone else there. I would have. But as a 3-tech, he is a good 3-tech. He is not who I would have picked, but I mean, you're looking at the front 7 of Walker, Campbell, Gary, Clark, Wyatt, Preston Smith.
That's strong.
Then in the secondary, Jair, Stokes, who had a really good year, Rasul Douglas, who had a really good year.
Yeah.
Then in the secondary, you've got Amos and Savage.
That's loaded.
That is no weaknesses.
Right.
So if they can get Sky Moore in the second round, Pierce, who we interviewed. I love Pierce. Yes. And he's got good tape as well.
I really think they might end up doing that. That fit seems
he's such a Packer wide receiver. Even Watson, who I'm not super high on, but like in the second round, go for it. I could bet on the trade. It's okay. Second round, fine. So I'm not that unhappy with what the Packers did tonight. Wyatt is a little bit of a reach to me. Not what I would have done, but then I look at that defense and it's like, okay, let's find the weak point. Where are you going to attack? You can't anywhere. And you got Rodgers, who has made how many second-round wide receivers one of the best in the league? Jordy, Cobb, Devontae Adams, all second-round guys. What if he makes another second-round guy look like a above-average wide receiver? What if the offense is good and you've got that defense? To me, I'm not mad at it. I'm not mad at it at all.
Rodgers has some of the best ball placement ever.
Yeah.
So you just get him a receiver that can like create some leverage in any way, shape, or form.
Sky.
Rodgers will know how to put it on him. I'm
Pickens, man. If they get Pickens, man, like
I love Pickens.
It's
Pickens.
It's a really sad. I actually didn't see a total meltdown from Green Bay Twitter, although I'm not super involved in Green Bay Twitter. I'm kind of more national. To me, I'm not mad at this draft.
I don't think you should.
And I don't think I should be. I think like wide receiver, to a lot of people who don't know how the Packers operate, they'd be like, oh, why wouldn't they take him? Or maybe someone who hasn't scouted this class like I have, and like maybe, I mean, Pickens, you could definitely say is a round 1 wide receiver, and I don't think you're dumb, but like the top tier of wide receivers were off the board. They never take wide receivers anyway.
It wasn't there for him. Right. Like the play wasn't there for him.
The value wasn't there for him. And honestly,
if Olave had been there and you'd passed on him, I would.
Yeah. If Burks was there and they passed on him, I bet have been like, he was my wide receiver too. But he wasn't there, And maybe they could have traded up, but they didn't. Yeah. And they stayed where they were, and they got some decent value. So
yeah, good value. But Browns didn't do anything.
Yep.
They have Deshaun Watson.
What do you think they'll do tomorrow? What are you anticipating, or what do you want? Maybe that.
I mean, it's like, okay,
44, right?
yeah, we're at 44, and it's like, would I love for us to get a guy like Pickens, and then our receiving core is Amari Cooper, George Pickens, Donovan Peoples-Jones, and who's the guy we took last year? Anthony Schwartz.
Yes, out of
Anthony
Auburn.
Schwartz. I think that's like a nice deep receiving core. I would be very happy with that. But the other side of this is the Browns. The Browns front seven, very shaky. It is Myles Garrett, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, and for all I know, you could name someone working at Arby's, and I would. No, there's a couple of guys that
they need some space eaters in there.
The Browns had, I think, a lot of depth on their defensive front last year that they lost. It doesn't look like we're going to bring Clowney back. So realistically, I would like the Browns to get some interior defensive line. Like if they spent the next 2 or 3 picks on interior defensive line.
I think that wide receiver is probably the popular mock for them, but I'm concerned that they could be the Chargers next year, which is a team
100%.
that great quarterback, solid offensive line, solid offense all around.
Yeah.
Wide receiver, like it's all there, and they had a top 2 offense. To me, the Browns, even right now, without taking a wide receiver, you got Watson, you got the offensive line, you got Chubb, you got Amari Cooper. Like even without a dominant wide receiver 2, you can project that to be a top 5.
You can make that
Yeah.
work. You can make that work.
It will be a good offense.
Right. What sunk the Chargers last year is no run defense. Corners, you didn't have anyone you really loved. And I guess the Browns do have a guy you love and are comfortable with on wide receiver ones, but Chargers didn't have that. It's like you can't be the Chargers next year. So that's why I think I agree, Blaiden.
Yeah,
I think that's
the
a good-
defensive line
good
is where
insight.
we need to go. But we'll find out what the Browns will do tomorrow. That pretty much wraps things up for us. As always, tons of content coming away on all platforms. We will be back. We have a lot coming your way, actually.
Sorry if we didn't talk about your team in the first round. We don't have time to get to anybody, but I thought we got on a decent amount. And I'm sure I'll be talking about teams
Right.
that
We will have a special bonus Saturday episode coming your way, so make sure you stay tuned for that as well as
we'll talk some more
usual
NBA.
content.
There
Yes,
too,
we're gonna
'cause I know
talk-
the Suns. Shout out Chris Paul.
Hey,
Couldn't watch it tonight because the Suns advanced.
shout out the
Sixers
76ers.
advanced.
Shout out the 76ers, man.
Yeah.
But we'll be back with tons of content all over. We got TikToks coming your way. We got YouTube. We got everything. Until next time, from Corn Boy, Bird Boy, and Lemon Boy, we'll catch you all on the flippity flop.